Hey everyone, and welcome to F4 Obsessed, a weekly show where we discuss F4 Thailand from a symbolic and meta perspective. I'm Ty, your host, and my co-host is Marie Claire, who I call MC.
Hello. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. We are Hana Yori Dango fans, for those who don't know, and we truly adore this story.
And if you're looking for sort of this symbolic and deep dive conversation about the other episodes, we try not to kind of repeat ourselves too much. We will occasionally point out other instances of things we've discussed before, but I highly recommend you listen to all the episodes if this is your first time here. And if it is, welcome.
Yeah, welcome. We're going to start with our comments review before we get into the episode. Every week we like to take a look at the different comments that people have left. Obviously, we're talking with people, chatting with people in the comment section. Every time you guys comment, it's really exciting, and we have like really good conversations there. But we like to kind of put them in the episode to highlight certain things. So this week we wanted to cover a few comments. The first one is from Chopa Boba, who said, I particularly enjoy the scene where Rin is at Mira's house and Mira asks if he'll be all right with not speaking to Thyme for the rest of his life. And the camera turns to the part of Rin drawing Mira and he responds, I'd be okay. It's as if he's saying that as long as he has Mira, he'll be fine. And of course, Rin has left now, but it's interesting thinking about what his journey is going to be with knowing he's going to be coming back. And, what those who know the story know that his relationship with Mira doesn't quite work out. So it's just interesting thinking about these little moments that we got from this last episode with him and her.
It's also really powerful how the camera frames things to say kind of things that are unspoken.
Yeah.
Right? And it's very powerful storytelling. I feel like this show is constantly a masterclass in how to do things in an optimized and also emotionally impactful way.
Exactly.
And this is just one small little example that is spread throughout this entire show of these wonderful little moments that show the power of visual storytelling in addition to a script.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of reading between the lines, and that's why we like it so much. There's so much to get into from a symbolic perspective, because stuff is happening that you can see it, like what's happening and what they're trying to say, but we just like to say it explicitly and really just get down to like what it is, what's happening.
When we've found this in other stories where the script says one thing, the action says one thing, but also the symbolism is speaking to that sort of ancient part of our brain that understands semiotics because it's part of our collective culture as humans and how we communicate with symbols. It's just another language and another tool that the storytellers are utilizing, and that means that it makes it even that much more rich, flavorful, layered. It's like a chef in the kitchen who decided to use all of the different flavors, and it's like a full umami experience, right? Which has like all of the different sensations and flavors in it, but then it also has like a satisfying crunch to it as well, they're using really all of the storytelling tools at their fingertips, everything, and that makes it so much more powerful. And you can only do that if you have a story that really, really well, and what you're trying to say, and you say it on multiple levels.
Exactly.
And so it kind of makes you judge other stories that don't spend that time and care to tell their stories, unfortunately.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Because so many just don't use symbolism these days in general. So yeah, it is very satisfying. Kula Potts said, lol, love you guys. Also, I just realized something and I laughed. I mean, it's not that important, but Goya's surname is John D. I think John D is the name of the female lead in the Korean version. Crying face, laughing, crying face. I died.
Yes, it is. John D is. Yeah. And they're doing this more and more. Like they're adding in these little homages or wink and a nod to the audience to say like we see you fans. And that's just love. That's just love for us specifically, me and you, Ty, but everybody else that loves this story.
Yeah, the Easter eggs are like super fun. Yeah. Hufflin Puffs says, didn't notice this until your video, but when he, meaning Ren, pushes her, she steps on the curve to where she's no longer dwarfed and intimidated by him. Therefore, when she's able to push him back, she's on level playing field as she tells him off. Fantastic turnabout for her. Also, the overall concept of time. I love in this version, especially this episode, how time is so prevalent and of the essence, not just from an outer perspective, considering that the series is only 16 episodes, but how time is a constricted concept, especially with Thym. He's reminded constantly how he only has a little bit of time to be a kid before taking on all these adult responsibilities. He has little time before his mom will come hunting for him to take up this mantle. So his sister tells him not to waste any more time to pursue Goya. But it also makes the viewers get on edge for the shoe to drop because we know the path for their happiness isn't without bumps and sinkholes.
Oh, I love this so much. And yeah, it is very apparent that that's part of this, and that'll go into something we're going to get into in the lore conversation this week. And
yeah,
yes,
it's purposeful.
I just wanted to pull out that they'd use levels, which is in acting, especially on stage or in TV, very, very well. Like you'll notice that F4, they don't eat with the plebes, down in the cafeteria or in the canteen, they call it, down below. They're up high and their seats are different, and they have leather couches, and that's where they hang out. And so everybody always has to look up to them. That's just one small example, but they use that shift in scenes where Goya becomes taller, or she was standing near the end of the episode where they're talking at the end and he puts the little thing on her head. The levels there change as well because she's kind of on a slope, so they're more on equal footing. It's very, very smart how the show directs its actors, and I appreciate it as a stage director a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Shruti Mazumdar said, the not being able to change anything retaliation from Goya after being shoved by Ren, which, side note, yes, we did talk about this a lot in our episode, but Shruti found something else that was interesting. They say, yeah, that's the writers calling him out, not for the mirror situation, but how his hatred towards overstepping boundaries and meddling into unnecessary things causes him to be as complicit as the rest of the F4 in the school bullying, simply because he chooses not to do/change anything about the status quo. He's as guilty as the rest. And I love this. This is so important to me because I never really enjoyed this character in other versions for many reasons. But one of the reasons is because people who say, like, she should have ended up with the nice guy, they're talking about this character. I'm like, he's not a nice guy though. No. Like he's a part of the F4. He is a bully, and people forget that. And the fact that they put this in there in this story of him shoving and saying the things that he said to her that was very hurtful, that's just kind of drawing the audience to see that a little bit more. So
one of the meanest types of bullying is ignoring and exclusionary bullying. Right? Because we as humans are social creatures, and even if it's an unhealthy relationship, i.e., we're being picked on or bullied, like, attention, unfortunately, sometimes is better than solitude.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to say it that way, but like, when you're literally like, people pretend you don't exist, that is horrible. And he is that kind of bully, which is like, they actually show it successfully in this one. Whereas in other versions, people are kind of left like, he's a nice guy. No, he's not. Like, there's a lot of confusion in the audience. The storytelling is so successful in this one. We actually get the right value degradation of each F4 member compared to other versions. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting.
It's successful. Like, yay. I'm so proud of you, directors and writers. Like, you get it.
Totally. Michelle Kim said, not sure if y'all mentioned it and I missed it, but I laughed out loud when I saw the drama the family was watching was called Flowers Over Boys, and Goya was wearing a shirt that said fries over guys when she was ironing.
Oh my God, it's brilliant. I want a fries over guys shirt. I want a flowers over boys shirt. It's such a deep cut. And we didn't notice this because not everything is translated in the episode. And sometimes it's hard for us to figure out what the Thai characters are and stuff like that. So call these out when you see them. I really love it. There's actually a scene later on that I think was a comment from somebody, but the name of the person isn't translated later on. And I think that might be like a name of a person that we should care about because of their icon looking the way it was.
Okay.
But I can't tell. So I'm like, do I need to care about this? I don't know. I'll find out later if it was important.
Yeah, people will let us know in the comments. Generally, people usually do.
And thank you so much for especially the English is a second language comments. You all apologize for your English not being good. It's really great. We can understand it. We'll figure it out. Thank you for participating in the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Big thank you. And I love it when anyone ever says that. It's like I would have never known. So, that's great.
They're trying their best and it's great. We love it.
They're trying their best. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things also that dropped last week, I think right around the same time that we dropped our review, was the In the Wind music video, which is featuring Du, who plays Ren. And it was just so lovely. And we just wanted to kind of cover it real quick, especially if you missed it. Go watch the video. It also has, first of all, I'll just say that he looks beautiful. I clipped several screenshots from it for the PowerPoint that we have up right now. And he's just, I'm falling in love with him so much. And I never care about this character. Like I never fall for this character. So
everyone is saying that they're making it really hard on us because we love Thyme and we love, this character so much.
So much.
They're making it genuinely hard. And that's what it's supposed to be, right? We're supposed to have this conflict, in who is good. And it's a very symbolic song just from the lyrics. Yeah,
it's very symbolic. And it also is leaning so much more into, the Ren and Goya relationship that we know is going to come, that's going to be a part of like the story. And I was kind of surprised to see that kind of this early on. I guess it sort of makes sense with the last episode and where it went. But yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about second male lead syndrome in the future. Once Ren comes back, we're going to be talking more about that. But also there was scenes in the music video
we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff we've seen, and then at the very end there was like a scene where we think is the scene where he comes back, and Goya has a bruise on her face. It's very weird. It's like, what did they shove together here plot wise? But I don't know. I almost don't want to spoil it for myself because I'm really excited to see what that's about.
Yeah.
Okay. So we wanted to quickly mention the F4 Thailand dolls. Last week I had found a link that wasn't, I don't think it's the right link. I mean, it's not the official link at least. But someone was kind enough to send me this on Twitter, which I really, really appreciate. I forgot their username, but they sent me the gmm-tv.com link, and the GMM is the broadcasting company. Yeah. So you can find the dolls on there and they are 690 baht, but that's like $20 in English dollars or American dollars. And The shipping alone for my region, at least, is actually $30. So the shipping costs more than the doll, which I find hysterical, and not surprising at all. And so the total comes around to be like $50. Totally worth it for me. I'm actually going to buy the Nani doll, so I'm trying to do that. But the wind doll and the bright doll are actually sold out right now, but they're supposed to get more in soon. So if you want to go buy a Nani doll or a Do doll, you can do that right now at gmm-tv.com/shop. So
I'm just doing it now so I don't forget.
I love it. I have to get on the phone with my bank so that they know that I'm actually purchasing a doll from Thailand.
They're going to cut off your credit card.
I know, they're like not letting me do it. Like they're like, no, we're not going to let you do this. But yeah, so that's the official place to get them from. And the little clothes come off. Like you can get different outfits for them and you can like undress them and stuff. Yeah, it's really, really adorable.
The face I just made, I'm like, oh, you can
undress them. They have like little stitches, over certain parts. It's really cute. So yeah, that's the dolls if you want to go get those. All right, on to our weekly lore segment. Yeah, so for those that don't know, the lore section that we're doing every week is just a little piece of like the mythology or the lore that Hana Yori Dango has in it. And this can come from lots of different places. This week, we wanted to kind of cover the hero's journey kind of a very general way, because something really important is happening at this particular part in the story that has happened in every single version of Hana Yori Dango. And Marie Claire and I are like big fans of, mythology and the study of myth, and specifically, Joseph Campbell and Jungian thought, which kind of delves into what these myths mean for us in kind of in a bigger way. So
it ties back to the psychological meaning for us as both listeners of a story, right, consumers of a story, but also how to use it as a lens to kind of look at our own life and our own experiences, because story in and of itself is about humanity, right? It's always a lens for us to view ourselves, both as a culture as well as an individual.
Exactly. Yeah. So to summarize it, the hero's journey itself is a pattern in mythology that reflects the rituals and the psychology of growing up. And these patterns exist throughout all of humanity and pretty much in all stories. And like Marie Claire said, it's a lens to view story through. So one of the biggest things to me, and that's relevant to this story, is that Campbell always talked about how the systems of humanity are always moving in one direction. But when an individual decides to become a hero and decides to find their own path, or is, searching for their own path, the only way that they can really do that is if they go against that cycle and against the system, and to, go on their own path. Right. So I kind of included this little animation of, the wheel and the cycle and this shows up in a lot of mythical art. This shows up in a lot of mythology, and a lot of patterns, in folklore. And so
and more storytellers are using the concept as a template for story, specifically, like the director writer of like Community and tons of other properties he's responsible for, but he would literally draw the circle that you wrote on like the screenshot on this page, but draw the circle, cut it in half, and every episode would go through an entire hero's journey.
Yeah.
Right.
It's very like, it messes with our psyche in a way that's like, we're already familiar with this story. We've seen it over and over and over again. So when someone uses it as, a template, which it doesn't have to be, but some people choose to do that, then you can see it. And it's really satisfying to see that, just because it's getting into a part of yourself that you might not even know is there. It's getting into like your subconscious.
It's speaking to different parts of your brains. And this is what we were talking about just earlier in the comments, which is that when a story chooses to communicate both symbolically, but like in a specific structure, using the script, using all of the different tools at the storyteller's hand, it feels satisfying on multiple layers. It feels like a very, very large, delicious, multi-layered cake.
Exactly. So for this particular story, what's really important right now is the act of crossing the threshold. So in Joseph Campbell's kind of pattern that he lays out, there are a total of like 17 steps, but we're not going to cover all of that. We're just going to kind of condense this into a really generic overview. The hero will typically start out in the ordinary world, and then they will depart into the magical world or some other world, a place where they can go to like learn lessons. And they learn those lessons through trials. Then they typically will be challenged to the point where they are initiated into this world. They're no longer a stranger there, but they have become one with that world, or they've been invited into a new family or something like that. And then they will experience a sort of death, not literally, but figuratively or symbolically, or
an ego death.
Or an ego death.
And an ego death is like a death of who you were before. Young talks about it quite a bit, and so does Campbell. And then the rebirth is the rebirth of the new person that you are, that is sympathetic with the society that they need to create or go back to.
Right. It's like, the rebirth of a phoenix, like a phoenix from the ashes type of thing. And then they return back to their ordinary world, but now they have the tools that they need to kind of, give back to society, but they also have these tools to live a different life and live their life for themselves. And that sometimes consists,
and sometimes heal the community that was broken.
Yeah, which is important for this story, right? Because
it is.
He's going to be the linchpin to be the change for his family. So it's really important that he goes out of his family, out of his normal, ordinary world, out of like the wealth and the extravagance that he has, and goes into her world. And that's going to help him atone for the things that he's done. That's going to help him be redeemed. And that's going to help him come back to the wealth with a different way of looking at it, and to kind of cleanse his soul and sort of cleanse that world, really.
And to what I talked about last episode, he is the sort of quote unquote leader or the baby king of the school, but also as he steps into being a leader within his mother's company, it will affect that world as well. And so he needs to be a righteous leader rather than an unrighteous leader. And he needs to have these lessons where he understands the weight of responsibility, that everybody underneath him will follow this precedence that he sets. And so if it's a caring society, if it cares about others, if he is caring, he will reflect that, and other people will care and help and support each other.
Exactly.
And so, this whole thing is so important, because we know right off the bat, with the title of the episode being The Broken Door, this is a gateway, a threshold to the other world, the unknown, the world that time specifically has not gone through. I think we should probably go into Goya's journey another time, closer to the end, I think is probably better. But we can see Thyme's journey, and it's very satisfying when you get both kind of a hero and heroine's journey in tandem, because they go through different things, but they're kind of following together, and then they meet up, and there's like these divergences where they're connected and then they go apart. And we've talked about this in other episodes. It's really, really satisfying to feel as you're experiencing the story. So how do we know that this is a gateway, other than the fact that it's literally named the broken door? Well, okay, there's a couple of really important symbols that are happening, which is he has not truthfully decided to enter her world, right? So even at the start of the episode, he's like, I'm going to pay for everything. I can't trust you. You have to be in my world. It's all of those sorts of things until at some point he kind of just decides. He's like, no, I need to go through that. But before he decides, and we'll go into some like the specific scenes later about what they are doing from a story perspective, but from a specific mythological perspective, there are two dudes who are like, you sure about that? Question mark. Like, and that's MJ and Kevin. They're literally showing him, be warned, there's a dragon over there, right? Sometimes threshold guardians are parents, right? We know that his mom is there as a threshold guardian, even though she's not physically in the episode in front of him. But his friends are playing the role of that. Right. And they even go so far as to try to convince her friend to back off, or to convince Goya to back off instead of having conversations with him, because they realize like it's no use.
Yeah, they're trying to stop him once, especially after the first conversation, which we'll go over. But yeah, threshold guardians are a really big part of this moment in a hero's journey. And like Marie-Claire said, there can be multiple threshold guardians, and there can be, and just because someone stands in your way doesn't necessarily mean they're guarding a threshold. They could be guarding like an elixir or some kind of be a part of a trial in order to gain some sort of skill that they need to go to continue on their quest or whatever. So all of these things are a part of myth, and they can be interpreted very,
Tia openly, is also like, functioning as his mentor, by the way.
Yeah.
That's pretty obvious in this, that she's like, do you want advice? Ask me for the advice. I'll give you the advice. And the fact that she's taken away several times too is quite common. But these threshold guardians themselves sometimes turn into allies. That's also cool.
Yes.
And so it's cool to actually see it through this mythological lens, and to see like how they're playing with these things. To see it so overtly shown. It's a good way to talk about the structure too.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, we'll be kind of coming back to this throughout the discussion of the episode, and probably going forward, because at this point forward, he's on a hero's journey, and like we said, like there's this really great lens that we can view that from and kind of dissect a little bit better. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that love stories are heroic journeys. So especially for young men with coming of age tales, going on a journey towards love is a heroic journey, because it requires the exact same patterns in order to become a better person, or in order to become a man, to be there for your partner. I mean, it's a heroic journey. So,
and you did a video on this concept, Villainous Lover Redeemed, which I really do recommend people search that out. It's brilliant.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so which time this time? Quadrant chart. Last week we had Tom end up on the child sweet spectrum, which again, if you don't know, this is because the director said something about how the actor is using different percentages of angry, child, sweet, and smitten. So we kind of put this quadrant chart together to analyze like which one is he this week, because he goes all over the place all the time, and it's really fun. So last week he was kind of this sweet child, he's waiting in the rain, but that changes pretty quickly. And this is my little animation. He goes up into angry, back down into sweet, and then he slides over into the smitten section, because by the end of it, he is just totally smitten. And this particular way of analyzing it, smitten is a little opposite from being a child, because it's more about him realizing his own feelings and kind of just leaning into it, as opposed to being, a child who is like, immature and kind of stuck in the I don't want to talk about my feelings kind of area. So
I do think that it's a very adult thing that he experiences in his love mode. And this is, I think it's a good time just to mention that we have been noticing a pattern in what he wears that relates to this. So we're going to call those out as we see them as much as possible. Like it was via tweet. We're like, oh my God, this is happening. You and I this week. We were talking about it. So we'll call it out what we think certain things mean, but they're absolutely using his wardrobe as symbolic.
Yes. And somebody else also called that out in the comments last week. I didn't catch who, I don't remember who, but about how in the previous versions it was his hair that typically showed us him changing,
his transformation.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is definitely all about the clothes with him so far as we've seen so far. So yeah, fun to watch. All right, let's get into the episode. So I have some,
I love these idiots.
Yeah, lots of physical confrontation in this, which it just gets cuter and cuter the more they get to know each other, and I love it. But I wanted to start off by saying that this does deviate from the 2005 Japanese version slightly. The start point and the end point are exactly the same, so if you go watch the version episode 4, it is exactly the same beginning and end. But it is taking pieces from the Taiwanese version, just in the fact that they get stuck in a stairwell instead of in an elevator. And then it takes from the Chinese version from 2018, where he comes to her house because she's sick instead of another plot device. So plot wise, like they switched a lot of things up. They added some things that were never there before. So it's really nice to see that, because
it sort of shows that they're owning this story on their own, even though they have the benefit of kind of cherry picking whatever they want.
Yes, exactly. And whatever works, works, and whatever they can shoot. Like they're being really, they're being really smart about this. So
yeah, this shows especially their relationship. If one does one thing, the other reacts in the same way.
Yeah. They're very much on equal footing when it comes to the pushing and the shoving and the yelling. And that's so great, because it's like,
nice to see this difference, because I don't think we've ever seen a female lead version where she's as physical with him.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It's nice because she's like, I'm not going to take your BS ever. Right. And it just, like, for me and Ty, like, this is just so Raylo, right? Like they're physically this, like, very similar, and that comes out more and more in the episode. Physically able to take each other on, but also, like, their differences lie in wealth and emotion.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
That's the differences. So they're both opposites and equals. Why is that so sexy? It just really is.
It really is. It's a yin and yang thing. It is a balance thing. It's a romantic trope. It's wonderful. So
I love when he calls out, he's like, I'm like a drowned pig.
Oh yeah.
And she's like, no, you're a drowned puppy. Right. And again, every time they mention the dog thing, it's tying back to not only the manga, but also other versions where he needs to be a tamed dog. Basically, he is her beast. And you notice he's dressed in his beast garb again. This is very, very important as well, symbolically. He has a different shirt underneath, but he has his animalistic skin on top.
Yep. Which will be important for later.
Yes.
So I also caught the whole she gives him a treat, so he must give her a treat type of thing. Like, he cannot take something without giving something in return. It's really important to him. It's a loyalty thing. It's an honor thing. So I love seeing that part of him, because I don't know if we really got that a lot in the other versions of his character. It's something particular to this character, and I really, really like that. So he's like, no, you already got me something. I want to do everything else for you today, because that's his way of giving back. So
again, to his love language, which we've called out before, that he has nothing that he can truly give her but his wealth.
Yep.
Like that, like he's like, I know I'm not worthy of you just as I am. So here, take my wealth. And she's like, I don't want your wealth. And he's like, I have nothing else.
Are you crazy, woman? Why don't you just like take the wealth, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so cute.
Oh, and then the pink little towel that she bought, like,
and she only bought one, even though she was also like pretty soaked at that moment. And he was like, where's your towel? And she didn't really answer him, because it's like,
probably didn't have enough money to buy another towel.
Exactly. And that's, he gets really kind of upset because he realizes that. And that's also probably a big part why he keeps it, you know, like it's a memento of the fact that she is so giving and she took care of him, you know, and all of that. So
yeah.
Oh, I love it. And
this sets up the whole, how he behaves this episode is him learning from the care that she gives him. He needs to give back to her, because he's like, this is how I'm supposed to behave now, because she's showing me this is her gift. I now need to do that. And he does that.
Yeah.
Like that's that give. She gives him a treat, but she gives him care. And so he has to give her care. Like it's very fulfilling. And this is where like some people get very confused by this. Like, oh, she's changing him. Well, no, he's learning. Yeah. That's well, and he's changing her too, right? If we want to actually get into the changing thing and how they're influencing each other, then it's happening on both sides, and that's what makes it so enticing. He's giving her confidence in herself that she's valuable. Exactly. And she's worthy of this type of treatment. She's worthy of these nice things. I mean, that's all a part of it. And she's worthy of more than just what sort of fate and her own place in society has given her. Exactly. Yep. So our little lovebirds go on their little date, and there's so many good moments that happen in a really short amount of time. Oh my God. I love, but the thing where he puts his arm out and he accidentally hits her face is so funny, because he's just looking for a place for them to like get food and things for them to do. And he's like, yes, this is how you're supposed to go on a date. And this is what we're supposed to do. And this is what we're supposed to do. And let's take a picture together. And then they get the flyer for the Ferris wheel. Yeah. And I really thought for a moment that they were going to go on this Ferris wheel and this was going to be where they got stuck. And I was like, wait, what? Because I think it's better that he's afraid of actually the commitment to go on the Ferris wheel, and then he screams the whole time. Yes. I think that's just brilliant. And that goes back to what we were talking about last week with Samsara, and that this is a representation of them getting on their shared life together. Yes. Again, and it circles. It is scary that they're like on this, and they didn't need to actually show them inside of it. They could just use the sound design to show him screaming. But before he does that, the bear is like, she's like, I'm gonna get a hug, and he gets jealous of the bear. In other versions, he's literally jealous of everybody. This was a good way to show, like, oddly, that he is still jealous of others that would take advantage of her, but also like encroach on his like quote unquote territory. And the fact that he is an animal at this point and he's fighting another animal is really significant. Yeah. Even if it's very like comedically played. Is that Paddington? Like, I don't know, but he's fighting like, Paddington. Like, yes. I love how he like kicks up the hat, like as he would like a person with a hat on. Oh my God. That was just such good comedic timing there. It was perfect. So yeah, hug me instead. Like I've seen that with a very jealous like guy. Like instead of hugging my girlfriend, hug me. Like but it's a bear. Like yeah. Oh Lord, it's great.
So
she calls him out on being a baby and being a child.
Yes, she calls him out, and he can't take that. So he's like, did you just dare me? And of course, so they go on it, and then Thyme gets sick. That's when the whole, the whole thing starts coming out. So they try to go to this restaurant, and she's like, no, this is too much. Again, everything is so purposeful, and everything comes back around. So the fact that this one meal would cost her as much money as an entire meal for her family does not sit right with her. And she's like, absolutely not. We're not going here. And somehow they end up in the stairwell. And I have to say something about the whole sick thing, because I love how in Asian dramas, like, getting sick is like so symbolic and all the time, because all it is like your body is like reacting to this like change. It's reacting to, right? Because they don't ever get sick. It's always just like a cold. It's always like a reason for
a slight fever. And it's always after they've been soaked in the rain.
Yes.
Right.
It has to do with rain or cold weather.
Rain is always a symbol for transformation. Always.
Yes. Or like they fall into a pool and they're
water
or wet. Yeah. I think in the manga it was snow, and I think in some other version it was snow as well. But rain is so similar. Again, water, getting wet, getting cold, and all of that is when the person does get sick. All of that is to do a few things. One, somebody has to take care of them, and it's always the other person in the relationship. And then also like to kind of give them a time to like change. Like it always is symbolic of some kind of change that's happening, because when they get sick and they come back from that, they're not the same person they were before. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. And of course, we know the episode's called The Broken Door, and this is the first broken door we get, right? The door that won't open. But I love that this is not the only broken door. But it's one of the broken doors.
This is the first, although, leading into it, he tried to contact her. He burns through his phone's battery. Both of their phones are broken. And so like the phone not working is in some way like fate, like pushing and pulling them around a little bit. So her phone breaks multiple times throughout this episode. I wonder if he'll buy her a phone.
Yeah, because that happens in the Chinese version.
It happens in 2018. Yeah. Because he gets frustrated with not being able to be connected with her. And that's symbolic, because that's their communication is getting stronger.
Yes.
Where communication interruptions means that they're having trouble connecting on a level, right? And but they're stuck together, so they have nothing but to do to communicate in this moment, which, oh God, I love them getting stuck together. All right.
Oh Lord, it's so great. So yeah, this is great, because like they could have just had her taking care of him, like, just this was wonderful, but so much happens here that is so beautiful, and it really just sets them up to have like a real conversation. And actually, yes, there was the one thing that happens before this I almost skipped over. Marie Claire, please tell us about the animal skin.
Oh, okay. So it actually happens like like kind of in this, right? So there's this moment where she's starting to give him a sponge bath, which is both incredibly sensual and also very mothering at the same time. So she's like, okay, I need to take your jacket off. All right, let's talk about animal skin. Exactly. So when we have a beastly husband, right, which is this, you can Google this, just type in animal bridegroom or animal husband. And folklore specifically, or you'll get some weird results. Animal skin is sort of the layer of the beast that is over top of them. So if you think about the most common and well-known animal husband sort of symbol or story involving this, it's Beauty and the Beast.
Mhm.
And so when the Beast is hurt fighting off the wolves, she starts to care for him. She wraps up his paw and she cares for him, and he becomes humanized in her eyes. So the fact that she takes off his jacket before they actually start talking and having a real understanding between the two of them, he is attempting to become the version of himself that she wants to see. So this is just like the Beast, like, I'm going to start dressing better, I'm going to start eating better, I'm going to start like showing her that I'm actually a prince underneath all of this animal skin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just a very solid symbol for shedding identity or becoming tamed when you were untamed.
Mm-hmm.
And a common another one other than Beauty and the Beast is the Lindworm story, where he actually sheds his full skin. The Holly Black's Folk of the Air series with
Mm-hmm.
Cruel Prince. Eventually the main guy becomes kind of an animal husband, and he sheds his skin too. So it's just like a really beautiful symbol for transformation and rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we get to the rebirth part of his hero's journey, he will stop wearing animal skins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff about the animal skins. I was also looking at some things today about, just the idea of like the snakes shedding their skin,
Mm-hmm.
and how it's a, concept about renewal and change and all of that. So again, like the layers of some of these meanings, they all mean something for what these characters are going through at this time. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah.
I also love that they talk about her power in relation to him and her brother.
Yeah.
And like, he acknowledges that they are equals in this.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that is so sexy. The and is the first time that they have common ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And acknowledge common ground on both sides, right? We are equals in this one thing, even if we're unequal in everything else to do with wealth or emotional intelligence,
right?
or love and compassion, or, all of these other things. But in this one thing, we are equals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the conversation, he starts it with, are you really like 500 baht for your whole family? Like, I can't imagine your home life. And that's, again, this is like tickling his subconscious to tell him he needs to know more about her. He needs to go to her home and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine your home life. Can't imagine it. And like, she starts to describe it, and he still is like fascinated by it. So all of that to get us to, okay, we start talking with what makes us unequal, what makes us imbalanced, like why can't we understand each other?
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to an understanding, and we get to, this part where he says he's going to cancel the red card. I mean, like we literally like, it's just such a efficient conversation, and it makes me so happy that everyone said what they wanted to say.
Yeah,
because that typically does not happen in these types of scenes.
No, they're left confused, whereas she's not in confusion by the end of this. She realizes that he's valuable, and he's just even more in love, which is yes. I was speaking with my eldest child because they like someone, and I was like, would you listen to this person read a phone book? And literally, like, yeah, that's the level. That's love. You want to hear them talk about anything.
Yeah.
Right. That's interest, and that's love. Like, you don't care what you do as long as you're with them. That is so good.
That's such a sweet thing. I never thought of that, but yeah,
it doesn't even matter what you're doing as long as you're with them.
Yeah.
That's the true transcendent thing. It doesn't matter where you are as long as you're with them. There are other societal things, other trials and other tests and other things you need to go through, but that is the core of what is amazing about this relationship.
Yeah.
Canceling the red card. Okay, I gotta talk about this just momentarily. So
Yeah.
she is pleading for the sake of the society that they are in. She's like, it is cruel, and it's not about her. She's pleading from a place of everybody else but her. She knows she can handle it. What happens is that he only cancels it for her.
Yeah.
Okay, so important, because he has taken baby steps in empathizing with others and understanding the role he has in the society, but he's only doing it because she is part of him now.
Yeah. And again, this goes back to like, he has other responsibilities and he has other loyalties that he's still dealing with.
And he hasn't gone back with the elixir being love for others.
Exactly.
In a larger sense, right?
Yep. This is still all about her, and he doesn't even know what that's about yet. He doesn't know what he's going to get into yet. So,
and it was a date.
It was a date. It was such a date. Loved it so much. And I loved this part where he's like, what kind of date did you expect? She was like, oh God. But it's a cute little moment. And everyone on Twitter has been talking about this too, but what ensues after this is just the cutest darn scene I think I've like ever experienced. He's
like, so we're going out again, and she's like, no.
He's like,
and he's like, yeah.
No.
Yeah, but she's laughing and they're playing.
Oh,
I love them so much. Oh God, like I've never. Okay, so every male lead is kind of annoying. He's a little annoying, but he's more adorable than anything. What?
He is adorable. He also has like this kind of smolder that he does, but because he's not like, he's not like this big guy, so his smolder is not intimidating. It's just like super endearing, you know?
Yeah,
like does it?
It looks a little intimidating. Like, what kind of date did you expect?
Yes.
Like, he's got that power and that danger and that like villainness about him, which is so sexy.
Yes.
But he's also like kind of like, I didn't know what to expect either because I'm a child. So
yeah,
I was just actually trying to plan our next date.
And then the end of it, well, he's like, I'm not gonna give this back to you unless you say yes. And again she says no, and he goes, okay, I'll pick you up later, or something like that. I'll see you later. Oh my God, it was so adorable, and I was so happy to see it. And it's cute that like this kind of just ends and he doesn't go away angry. Like, he's not mad about this interaction. He's just like, he just knows that this is a work in progress in a way. Like, he's like, okay, I'll see you later. Like, we're going to continue on. So love that about this character.
Yes.
So
I did also want to point out that this is the start of sort of a deviation from the other versions of him that we have seen.
Yeah.
Which is, he fully recognizes his place in her heart, which someone on Twitter, Subway Dates, who followed us from our Raylo days and BTS days and now is like back again. They're like, oh, they're doing this, I'll follow them again on this, but which is, hey, welcome. Pointed out that it's very refreshing to have him realistically understand, hey, he is not the top of her heart, but yet he has a desire to pursue this in a respectful way. What is going on with that? That's never happened before.
Yeah. Again, it's really odd. They're really making some deliberate changes to make him more almost palatable. It's interesting, but so yeah.
And then we get into this, which is the family has financial problems. Her grandfather is sick, and so they loan some money to get through the next couple of weeks, and the loan has come in early. And it's a lot of money. It's what, $1,000-$2,000, somewhere in that range, right? That's a lot of money for a family that's struggling to get by.
Yes, absolutely. And she knows that she can help out, so she can pay a little bit, but she has to pay more than what she has currently. So she shows up at this club to go like face the loan sharks with a shovel.
So that was a very on point and particular choice.
Yeah,
because she's like a gardener. She is in the dirt, right? Like that is what she's always wearing. But she's wearing different colors this time, which I thought was significant. I wanted to discuss that briefly. What did you think of that?
Her shirt in this scene, like
where she's wearing like a blue, green, and white shirt, and white is significant because it's associated with Ren.
That's true. Somebody did.
He looks at the handkerchief beforehand before she decides to do this too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Someone did mention that her clothes were actually starting to look like Ren's in the last episode. So there's some questioning there of like, okay, well, what are her colors really? Does she typically just dress in those colors already, or is she becoming more like Ren when she thinks of him or whatever? So,
and she wore blue when she was in the pretty dress.
Yeah.
And she was finally kind of like beautiful on her own as well. So that's significant. There's stuff going on with the costuming choices, which makes me think about our good friend Drama Lindy and how she was so focused on the costuming for Meteor Garden 2018. They're doing this with all of the characters, which is also good too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Meteor Garden 2018 is just so bazonkers, like the way that the characters dress. It's so unrealistic and it's so overdone, but that's what makes it so much fun. This is definitely a more realistic version, but there's still stuff going on with the colors. And I agree, like it obviously means something, but we might not be able to piece everything together until we see their whole journeys, everyone's journeys.
What did you think of this choice
for the costume or for the
scenes?
Oh
yeah,
my
let's get
God.
into that. Yeah.
Oh God, I hated the scene.
I hated it so much.
I hated it so much.
I mean, I understand why they sort of amped up the choice to do it this way, because it shows her desperation more. It's efficient storytelling to show like, hey, she's like 3 seconds away from prostitution.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
there's a lot of reasons I think they did it. I just wish the scene wasn't as long as it was. It was so gross. And I literally just wrote ew in my notes like over and over again. But it was frustrating because, she's doing it because it fits with the plot of her needing to help her family out. It fits into the problems that they have with money. And it also
it societally compromises her in the same way that both the manga and all the others do, but it's unrelated to her being quote unquote loyal to Tom.
Yeah.
Right. So in the other versions, and we'll get into this later on at the end, but there's this character called Thomas. And this is this plot that replaces her sort of quote unquote cheating on Tom.
Yes.
But this is all in her own service and has a different meaning and a different connotation, but also sort of reputationally taints her in the school society. So it's important. I think they're removing Thomas from the plot, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it does effectively do the same thing for us.
Yeah. And while watching the scene, I was like, okay, I really, really hope that the pictures are being taken here, because otherwise, like, it was like, what's the point of all this if it was not
why
are
you putting our girl through this?
Yes. Yeah. It felt super, super bad. Like, I just felt so bad for her. I mean, I'm glad that like she fights back, and I'm glad they show her being strong. It just lasted way too long. And there was the line in the middle of it of where the creepy old man says, you should have a compassion for a guy who tries to win your heart. I was so mad about that line because she takes it for a second and then she disposes it because he's a bad man. And I just felt like it was a bad choice. like let's not do that. Let's not have bad characters say things that are actually probably important, but
I mean, it lays the groundwork for confusion a little bit, which we might still get. We might still get that confusion, especially next episode, depending on how Tom reacts. And we've seen a variety of different reactions from this character in the different versions, based on the Thomas plot. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know how to react to this until we get the reaction from Tom in the second episode.
Yeah.
Or the episode after this. So
I completely agree. Yeah. And it's kind of a toss-up right now because it just depends on how they decide to go forward.
Maybe the only questionable thing about this was how long it was, but maybe it needed to be this long to make us feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
As the audience.
True. Yeah. I feel like we could just have done without the confusion. Just, oh Lord. Okay, so going beyond that scene, so then she goes back to school and they're all looking at a video. She doesn't know what the video is yet because again, her phone's not working.
Yeah, and she and we think momentarily it's the club.
Yeah, which is kind of brilliant because it's like, and going back to the other versions, like,
oh no, there's actually other things that have happened. Oh my God, what?
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, and the other versions, and especially the longer versions, this is difficult to cover because there are these two things happening. Like there is some kind of recording of her that's taken with the male lead, and that gets spread around the school to where they're like, oh, they're together. And then in a later scene, there's a recording of her. There's the pictures of her, and that gets spread around the school. So these two things do happen, but typically they happen like really like not in the same episode. Japanese version did it in the same episode, but again, it's like they don't do it quite this efficiently. So it's, I don't know, it's interesting. So, but they do this in a way that is, it's kind of flirting with the audience a little bit. It's like, oh, you think this is going to happen, but it's not quite like that.
And then enter Tom and he's like, no, we're dating. Everybody back off. Red card is canceled. Everything is important. Okay. So this is a key part of his character as well in all of the versions, that when he says something is going to happen, he does it. And, or he tries his best to make sure that it does happen, which is really like kind of the honor coming through and the like righteous leader stuff coming to the forefront. In the Meteor Garden 2018 version, everything that he promises when she's all dressed up is something that eventually does happen, which is kind of interesting storytelling. Like he's basically like, I'll share my wealth with you. We'll be able to eat lunch together.
Oh, that's right.
Things like that. And so this is key because he has promised like these certain things, like we can hang out together and we can be friends and we can do all these things. And, that is tied together. I love his little wink because he's like trying to be flirty and trying to be cool, but he is not. He's embarrassing his friends. They're like, let's get away from here.
Yeah.
He is wearing his tiger skinned outfit with specifically the Rolling Stones in gold logo, which only came out for a very I had to dig into this. Rolling Stones tongue sticking out lips, which, of course represents anti-authoritarianism, but also is basically pulled from Kali, the goddess, the Hindu goddess, sticking out her tongue. That's where they created the logo from. But it's related to sex.
Of course it is.
So, it has sort of like a lot of sexual connotations because of the Rolling Stones and like the obvious, like, connotations around that. So there are two, and I joked about this on Twitter. There are two tigers in Tom and both are hot for Goya.
Oh my goodness. I
love his outfit. I love it so much.
That's so perfect. So yeah, so they drag them to the canteen and to where they get to the two girls get to sit with the gods for this particular moment.
And they're raised on high above everybody else.
I love that they also have like their own food up there. Like they have like their own buffet tables and stuff. Like they they do eating better food than the people down below. So that was really funny. And like there's a moment that I wanted to point out for those that are familiar with the story going forward. There's a moment where they recognize the friend's surname, which leads me to believe that this is not just the jealousy plot. This is the whole revenge plot, which is in the Japanese version in its full glory. And it is absolutely bizarre. And I do wonder what they're going to do with this. I'm like, for the name reveal, the way they did this scene makes me have hope that it's going to turn out pretty good.
There's something about this plot that I love that they did in the 2018 version and in some of the other versions, like the Meteor Garden versions, that I want them to do, because it shows how much love Goya has for others, and it's important.
It is. There's a reason why it's in the story.
And the Hana Yori Dango version is wacky.
It is. It's very wacky.
I suspect. I hope they take the best parts of that, which is the efficiency of the storytelling, and then, curb it a little bit with the other versions they've done. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. Again, like I have hope that they're going to do it well, because so far I'm like, okay, I'm seeing like little glimpses of brilliance. So
yeah. And one of the things about Hana Yori Dango Japan, that the Japanese version, that kind of is off-putting, is that these plots seem to come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Whereas this version, they know where these things are going, and so they lead little breadcrumbs beforehand, which creates satisfying storytelling, because we as the audience are like, oh, I wonder if that's important. Oh, I'm going to pick that up and bring that along, So it's just really smart storytelling. This is also the first time that we've ever seen the boys of F4 have a meta conversation about where everything stands, where Goya and Tom are present at the same time. They're not kept separate. They're both on the same page. And Tom is fully aware of where he is in Goya's heart and says, show her some respect.
Yeah. Like they're talking. Yeah. Oh, it's so sexy, right? It's like he's saying, like, let's not talk about, don't talk about her, what she thinks. Don't talk about what she feels right in front of her. Like, let her talk. She's right there. Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. But they
react in like, oh my God, you're growing up.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. I love MJ so much. Like so much. This boy is just getting under my heart. I love him so much. So he's like, no, like Goya, it's fine. Like, we don't find this stuff unusual. Like, I'm interested now. Like, please tell me. Tell me what happened when they hear about, the fact that they slept overnight together and that kind of thing. And then there's a whole conversation about like beating around the bush and like,
what are they doing with their fingers? What are they doing? Because they cut away.
Yeah, like they cut away. I literally clipped it like right at the end there. I have no idea
what they doing with their fingers. If anyone can figure out, or if it's a thing, let me know, because I'm like, I've been obsessed with what MJ and Kevin have been doing with their fingers. Like they're like, I thought they were like making some lewd gestures and that's what they cut away, but I have no idea. They're both pointing with their index fingers. What are they doing?
There's also that moment at the very, very end of that clip there where they kind of look away almost, and it looks almost as if they broke character for a second. So it makes me think that they kind of just improvised it, like maybe Kevin improvised it, and like Win and Nani improvised it, and then Nani cracked up and he looks away, and they both kind of look away like, I can't believe we just did that on camera.
We were embarrassed.
Yeah.
Like, so, were they making lewd gestures?
Oh, and okay, another thing I wanted to add was that Nani, the guy who plays MJ, actually posted on Twitter today or yesterday when the episode dropped. He posted the line of like the fire escape stairs. Like, so something happened in that scene when they were filming, like, because they both like, I think it has something to do with the improvisation of it. I'm not entirely sure, but Nani found it funny enough to post it on Twitter, and just assumed that everybody understood what he was talking about. So.
Maybe other people understood what we did. They could tell us. That would be great.
But regardless, even if no one else understands it, it is such a cute scene, and I love them so much, and I love their smiles, and I'm falling for them.
Hana is so uncomfortable.
Hana is so uncomfortable, and she's such an interesting character now. Like, she's not like in the Hana Yori Dango 2005 Japanese version, they do something with her where they give her, like, she has these eyes, she'll like open them really, really wide, and you're like, wow, this girl's crazy, like this girl is nuts.
Yeah,
but this character is got a little bit more, she's, you pity her in a way that, you know, it feels kind of real, and there's some layers there, and there's a backstory there, which I'm curious about, even though I know it, like, but it's endearing, right?
Yeah.
So
they're making us empathize with her no matter what. So I have hope they're going to handle this well.
Yes. Yeah. And I didn't clip this in the scene, but right after all this happens, Goya and Hana leave, and that's when we have like our two threshold guardians, Kevin and MJ, stop Tom and tell him, like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, they say beware,
the dragon exists, and the dragon will eat you. I mean, dragon mother will eat you.
Yeah.
And he's like, but
say,
I gotta try.
Yeah. But they also say, like, we're okay if you were just playing around, but if you're serious about it, this is going to be a problem. And the reason why is explained a little bit later in the other scene with cunning. But this one, he says, Tom doesn't have any of it. He says, if I didn't try, like, how would I know? Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And this is also,
it's interesting too, because their reason for him not wanting to do it is because they always fix his messes.
Yeah. Which, it's funny because Tom knows that's not true exactly, because he has other people that fix his messes. And they showed us that, like, there's other people in his world that will remove the black box from his car if he gets in a wreck, right? Like, that's not MJ and Kevin. Like, so there's some layers of things going on here, and Tom pretty much just ignores them, which is why they resort to what they do later. But so that's that scene. The next scene is,
oh my god,
yay, when there's some little things that happen with Goya. We find out she's still a little sick at home, and she's trying to find jobs so that she can earn some extra money. And
she has the handkerchief, and the handkerchief is dreams versus reality. It's brought up multiple times, just like the phone being broken, being that like fate is kind of stepping in to say, like, there's really only one way to go. And then he walks right through the door because the door was open.
Yes. Yeah, he walks through the gate. Oh yeah, she does ask him, like, what are you doing here? And he's like, the door was open. It's just lovely. All of the symbolism right here, which we've already talked about, the importance of thresholds and doors. But one thing that was called out to me, I think it was someone in a Twitter conversation, said that in Thai, a fence and a gate is actually like fence door or something like that. So the way that it translates is basically it's a door. So that's really funny to me. I was like, okay, like,
it's literally a fence door.
It's literally a fence door. Like, I love it.
It's something blocking your path, and he just walks right into her world. He's not afraid. He's like, I'm doing this full knowledge, and guess what? The door was open, so I'm coming.
Yes. Yeah, I'm coming in. And I brought gifts. I brought something to pay back what you gave me, which is I want to take
in the exact way that you cared for me before.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about his outfit. This gets into our theory.
Yes.
All right. Whenever Thyme wears red, he is absolutely in love. He's absolutely in love. And specifically, this outfit is a Lacoste sweater with a houndstooth pattern. So back to the dog thing again. So he is in, although it doesn't show it, he is in animalistic clothing.
Yeah.
He's wearing his animal skin. Even though he's wearing his like, I'm wearing red because I love you and I'm here. I'm here because I love you.
It's funny that there's two animal things going on, like the houndstooth pattern, right? But then also, the little alligator because of the Lacoste symbol. Like that is so funny to me because I didn't, wasn't gonna think about that at all, but I love it. I think it's a cute little nod to, and like you said, puppy love as well, right?
Yeah,
because the red. So
yeah, he's a puppy love. He's in love and he's a puppy. Yeah,
he's adorable. And that's when he finds out that it is indeed 500 baht for a full family meal, and he's absolutely fascinated by that. Like, and then he looks at her when she gets in a fight with her brother about the piece of pork, and he just is absolutely smitten. I love that moment so much.
They're doing such a, like, Bright is just doing this wonderful thing with his face whenever he's just absolutely in love. Like, I look at me that way, Bright.
Yes. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so the magic pork scene. This is a brilliant scene, and I love a lot of people were talking about it on Twitter too. This means a lot for like what Goya's family really stands for, and like what kind of people they are. And also this is the magic elixir, right? Like this is a part of it. This is a boon. This is something that's going to make Tom's life better, and it's going to give him a skill that he needs for the real world. So
family, love, and compassion.
Yeah. Something that he didn't have, or that he doesn't really know. He doesn't know that it's powerful, and he doesn't know that it's magical. Like that's what it's teaching him here. And it's all symbolized in this one little piece of pork.
And it's really interesting, like the comparison between his family and her family. Yeah, they're all sitting on the ground, but they're all together and sharing, and what little food they have, they share together. And then we have the comparison to him having an abundance of food, but no love.
Yeah. And I love that they have to tell a sad story, like a sad story to like, get this last piece of pork. And Goya takes like a dig at her dad for putting them into debt, like for the loan shark thing, which is adorable. And then the son says about how he has to wear hand-me-downs, and Tom looks down at his clothes, like because he's wearing, something that's probably brand new, that's really expensive, and he kind of feels a little ashamed. And so when they go to tell his story, he feels like he's like, I had food and I have clothes, like I have nothing sad, like there is nothing sad in my life is fine. And he's just kind of slowly just walking through this, and then he says like, he goes, it's funny, the food is so abundant in my house, but I've never had such special pork. Oh, because he's starting to recognize the magic of this. And again, it's not the pork, but it's the experience of being together. It's the family, like you said, and this dinner and together,
having compassion for one another's problems, regardless of how big or small they are.
Yeah. And it's beautiful that they tell us this explicitly, like when she does split it up into 5 pieces so they all can have some, I mean, that's a testament to just Goya just being a MacGyver almost. Like she is going to figure out how to give people what they need and what they want. And that's brilliant interpretation for her character.
And in so many ways, she also is the goddess figure in his life, right? Because she gives him all of the lessons that he needs to learn, which is the missing love and feminine in his life.
Yeah, exactly. So she calls it out explicitly in the narration here. She said, the magic pork represents how we don't belittle anyone's problems. It shows that everyone needs some kind of cure for our hearts. Like at some point, everyone needs this little piece of magic. I just love it so much. It's so great. So this scene is actually intercut with the magic pork scene. But I didn't like the flow for this, so I put it all into its own section.
And it's very obvious when you pull it all together how much they're threshold guardians, because they're trying to intervene, they're trying to stop, they're in a way functioning as, you know, a like literally like they're standing up in her way.
Yeah.
And she's representing like the potential of this. And she's like, well, if they don't try and you don't trust them, like, what are you even doing?
Yeah, like there's a lot that happens here. It kind of shocked me how manipulative they are being to her, and you know how much they're trying to do without actually explicitly saying what they want to say.
It's all setting the groundwork as a foreshadow to the big dragon that is actually out there, Tom's mother. Right. So they do all of the tricks that she does eventually to Kanging as like a, you know, hey, this is what you're going to have to go through with your friends.
Right. Do you really want to go through this? Do you really want to know what it's like to live our lives? And it's interesting because it goes back to Kevin's discussion in the first episode where he has the olive in between his fingers and he's talking about the pressure that they are under. And he's like, what does it do? Like, what is pressure or what is being high up, you know, on top of everyone else, like on the highest mountain? What does that do to you? And he's like, it's pressure. And sometimes you just give into it. And he squishes the olive. And this is, again, he's giving this lesson now to her, but he's doing it in a way that gets under her skin. It's specifically, again, this is very manipulative, but giving her a piece of candy or like this dessert and telling her how much it is. And the fact that she just throws it back in his face.
Yeah.
It is so satisfying. And I love that, like, she's like, you know, how much did it cost? And she sends it to him, but then she forgets about, I guess, the $12 fee or something.
Yeah.
So she still owes him, you know, some money, which is humiliating. But again, this is a game that they're playing because they're having their own push and pull, if you will.
Yeah. And their own subplot has started already, right?
Yeah.
Like their secondary romance is starting already because she's unwilling to budge.
Yeah.
In her morals and in her ethics.
Yeah. And this was, again, going back in the conversation that they had previously. He tells her, like, why don't you have faith in your friend? Because Kevin was impressed with Goya. But now, because things are getting serious, he's like, well, this can't happen. And she's like, well, maybe you should have faith in your friend, and throwing it back at him. Like, why don't you trust Tom and like what he wants? Just like I should trust Goya and what she wants. And that's just, it's absolutely brilliant. So, all right. So,
I love this.
This scene broke my heart in so many ways. Like the part where she drops the handkerchief and Tom sees it and he picks it up and he's like, he gives her this look and it lasts for so long when they look at each other. And it's just this recognition of, I've done so much and I've done all of this and we've had all this time together and you still are in love with my best friend. Like all of this runs through his head and they fight for a second over, he's like, I'm going to take care of you now because I still owe you that. Right. He's being so, he has to do this. So he's like, I'm going to put the ice pack on your head. And they're kind of struggling. And then to get her to stop struggling, he tells her, I'll tell you a story about Ren. Again, just rip my heart out of my chest, throw it on the ground, stop it into pieces and light it on fire. Like that just really broke me.
And it just shows like his own self-awareness and that they're not showing that he's denying things anymore. Like they did show him denying stuff like when he was eating the yogurt and stuff like that, or not really fully understanding the scope of the situation. But he's eyes wide open in this and understands that, she's right to love Ren. He's wonderful. I love Ren.
Yeah, exactly. We all love Ren so much. Like, how could you not? And this is beautiful that he's like, I'm going to tell you a story about him. And this is just as much his story as it is Ren's story. This is really important. This is it's giving her a piece of him. It's giving her a piece of his soul, but it's also like kind of justifying her feelings about Ren. So this goes back,
it's important because it's the first time Tom understood caring for others outside of what he wanted. It's literally telling a formative experience about why he loves the F4, why he loves Ren as his best friend, because he hurt Ren and Ren still cared for him.
Yes. So we wanted to do this little mini lore because this is an important moment. And this is something that happens in almost every single version. Single version.
It does not happen in almost every. It happens rarely.
It happens in 4 of the 6 that we typically talk about.
Does it happen in the Korean version?
I don't know.
I couldn't find it. So so this is actually something from the comics where it happens exactly where it happens in the 2018 version of it. So Ren has returned and he's kind of dealing with stuff. So they've moved this ahead in the story as far as where it happens to reveal it, but it's actually never revealed to Goya or to the main female lead ever. It's a discussion amongst the F4 as to what Ren's motivations might be, and that this is sort of a revenge on Tom or the main male lead, and that he himself owes this to Ren.
Right.
Instead, we get this as an insight into their characters to understand that this is him being socialized into the world. The super ego is given to him through the relationship Tom and Ren have. The weirdest version is the apple in the Hana Yori Dango Japanese version, where Zomaji wouldn't let him grate apple and eat it in a weird way.
Yep.
And so hands him an apple as like when he's off on the airport. It's so weird, but it's okay. So this is important because it is him understanding love for another for the first time.
Yeah. Because he knew that he was a jerk when he grew up, when he, grew out of his childhood. He knew that he had been a jerk to Ren, but this is an acknowledgement of, this is who I was and this is where I come from. And this is kind of still a part of who I am. And
recognizing shadow.
Yeah. Recognizing your shadow, which is the part of yourself that, will always be there. Your faults, your flaws, your trauma, the things that follow behind you for the rest of your life. Like, you always have to deal with them and you can't just throw them away. And that's what he was giving to her, is he was saying, like, this is a part of me. And this is how Ren and I's relationship, this is where it comes from. And that's why we still have these issues, basically. And this is why I still have intimacy issues, basically. So it's lovely that, they go back with this version, they go back to the manga in a way by, having it still be, it's just a teddy bear.
It's a teddy bear.
Yeah.
And he doesn't rip off the head. They don't rip off the head. They rip off the arm. So
the arm,
yeah, it's a little less horrible. But the 2018 version had a Spider-Man doll.
Yeah,
it's cool too.
I loved that scene in the 2018 version. It's so cute. Okay, so the summary of this that Tom makes is that Ren is a good person. Everyone falls in love with him. And again, God, just.
This is also saying, Goya, you're a good person and I'm in love with you.
Yeah.
Without saying it.
I mean, the subtext, and it's no surprise that people fall in love with him. Like, I love it. I love it because, like, Tom is just, he loves his friend. Like, he loves Ren. He loves his friend, and he's like, I can't fault you for loving him because I love him too. So there's just so much that's going on there, and it just breaks my freaking heart. So then
and then they play fight like siblings. So
Yep.
she's gone from mothering him to being on an equal footing like siblings, like how she fights with her brother.
Yep.
And the next step will be past familial love. Right? Like that's what we're saying here.
Yes.
And in the fight, this has broken the door. There is no barriers to the worlds between them.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no more door there. I love that so much. Because again, that's like he's pushed his way into her world, but also like they broke the door together.
Yeah.
So
I do want to point out that Tom is literally physically too big for the little door.
Oh yeah, he has to
that
duck.
fits all of his family, probably except, or all of Goya's family except for probably the brother. But he has to duck down to get through the door. That's just such like a nice little moment to show like he is like a giant amongst this, you know.
Yes. Totally.
And the play wrestling fighting. I did want to call that out because that's like one of the first ways I knew I was really into my husband when we were just kind of friends, was we play wrestled and fought.
Yeah, that's something I mentioned in like a previous episode of ours too, is that it takes chemistry to fight like that. Like it takes chemistry to shove and push and test each other's limits, whether you're angry or you're, you know, playing. So it's interesting.
And then we get the voiceover from Goya saying, life is about opening doors and finding new things. My door opening has a lot to offer. Life full of darkness, I can see now, has more light. And so this is direct called out symbolism to her growing, right?
Yeah.
Out of the dirt, right? And towards the sky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is tied to the meteor / grass.
Yep.
Combo,
each other, right?
Symbolism that we've seen all throughout.
Right. Coming down and coming up to meet each other amongst the stars. So then she says, or he says, I've got to know a lot more of you, which again, this is the second time he said that. Earlier he said the same thing, and it's so cute. And she says a little bit too well, like all too well, you know, like maybe you got into my life a little bit more than I was ready for. And she pushes him and like, you know, go home.
Oh, this is like the are you hanging up now? Yeah, I'm going. No, you're gonna hang up now? No, I'm going. Yeah, and you hang up first, you know.
Again, he gives her this smolder, this look of like, you really want me to leave? Like, really? Okay, fine, I'm going.
Yeah, all
right, I'm going. Like, he is just so smitten with her. It gives me just so many butterflies. I love it so much. Okay, and the last scene, and there's kind of this mini scene with the fact that they find the towel in Tom's closet, and you know, the mom is like, okay, you need to start watching him more, especially at school. So that's going to be wonderful. And I love that the towel is what gives him away. Like he was keeping it, he was hiding it. He was telling the maids not to tell anyone about it, which is great. And then Goya at school, her phone again doesn't work, and she doesn't know what's going on. So she goes to see what the whole ruckus is about and finds the pictures.
People treat her differently instantaneously because they're like, oh, Tom's going to be pissed about this.
Yes. Like, oh, you were under his safety before, but now like, just wait for it. Yeah.
Subtly foreshadowing the next episode, which was cute. Or good, smart, not cute, not cute.
Smart. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about Tom's outfit.
Yeah, Tom's outfit. I love, there's stars on it. Like, what the heck?
He's so high above her. He is the meteor garden. He is up in the stratosphere, right? Yeah. And this is such a not subtle. It's not subtle at all. It's an obvious way to show, look at the difference between us. You are the dirt, the lowest of the low, and I am up in the sky. And there's no red, no yellow, which was such an interesting choice to say. In my opinion, it's showing that he is it's a shirt cliffhanger, because we don't know which way he's going to go. Is he going to be dark? Is he going to be light?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it does put him in like this limbo. I love that this is the moment, and this happens in every version. She looks at him like, please don't, like, please
judge
trust
me on this. Yeah.
Right. because they have established a friendship now, and there is so much weight to seeing how he's going to react, because she knows that this doesn't look good. And it's that moment that I love so much, where the female lead like figures out that she actually cares about what he thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the beginning of her realization of what's happening.
Heartbreaking when they do a voiceover internalized thoughts in the shows, or when they have it in the comic, because she's literally like, don't take this the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like don't think ill of me.
Yeah. And before she wouldn't have cared at all what he thought.
Like she literally said, yeah, I'm getting an abortion, or I'm pregnant, or it,
yeah.
You know, like she didn't
Sickness.
care.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But like, she's like, don't misunderstand this. Like, yeah. And this is replacing again the Thomas subplot, which has meaning for later on in the show, potentially. But this was just like, Thomas was just another thing that came in where Tom expressed his jealousy. I don't know how this is going to play out. I'm actually really, really interested to see how the creators are going to treat this, because sometimes he's like, I trust you, and sometimes he's like, I'm mad at you right away. It'll be interesting to see. I suspect they'll lean into the trust just for efficiency, and then the rest of the F4 has to come in and like help her kind of redeem herself in the societal structure, right?
I think that I think they're gonna follow the next part of the plot points that the 2005 version follows, the Japanese version, but they're gonna do something different with it, because the previews looked so different. Like the preview for the next episode, I was like, what is going on? Like they did not want to show us anything. Like they had everything in shadow, but there's like one line that I want to call out that was in the preview where Kevin says, I'm switching to Team Goya. Blew my mind. Just absolutely blew my mind. Like what an exciting way to tease.
Threshold guardians become allies, right? Like that's part of it, right? So this is cool.
It is so freaking cool. It makes me so happy. So super excited to see that. But yeah, it's like, honestly, this episode was really, really fun, and I had such a good time watching it, except for like that little scene in the middle. I understand why it had to happen. I just wish it wasn't as long, but everything else is brilliant. Any other final thoughts?
No, other than that it's completely unfair that we have to wait another week for a new episode, but it's making us savor it, allowing us time to analyze. It's just kind of the difference between a 16-course meal and a smorgasbord. Like this is where we're at. We have to slowly eat each course, you know, absorb, think about the flavors and what it's doing to our palate. It's I appreciate it. But it feels unfair when I could certainly use a distraction right now.
Oh, I hear ya. Yeah, it would have been nice to binge this one, but I'm glad we're covering it week to week. So, and so let us know in the comments like what you thought about this episode and what you thought about that choice with that one scene, and if it made you as uncomfortable as it made us. And yeah, anything else?
Nope.
That's it. All right. Thanks guys so much for watching this or listening wherever you have consumed it. And you can follow me on Twitter. I talk about this a lot on Twitter at my channels at, which is at wit_folly. But you can also follow me on my personal, where I talk about other things, like right now, Cobra Kai, lots of Cobra Kai. And you can follow me there at black_TYM. And Marie Claire, where can they find you?
Yeah, and I just want to point out, if you're listening and want to also re-listen via the podcast, we release the audio only on What the Fiction, which is my podcast feed. You can also follow What the Fiction on WT Force Media or my personal Twitter, where I am always talking about this because it's my obsession right now, at Marie C. Gould on Twitter.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you. Bye.